everyone, and welcome to Pass the Mic. My name is Gino, and today I'm sitting here with Lucky. Lucky Lynch. Double L, baby, double L. Say hello, Lucky.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be with Gino today and be able to just talk about whatever we're going to talk about.
Exactly. It's all organic, baby.
Right.
All organic. So what's our song today, Lucky?
It is Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let there be peace on earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful song for this week. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you want to start?
what
key are we in?
I don't even know. I just went like, where's that song? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our power, sisters all are we. I like that. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Hey! That's your song for the week. Let there be peace on earth. Mm-hmm. And you know, I love that you picked that song because we think peace is out there, but the peace is within, you know. So I want to ask you, I want to know, in this time, right here, right now, what is your passion? What drives you?
What drives me is a sentence I did in a foundations class.
Okay.
And that said, and I created for myself, my name is Lucky. I am here to be a healer of relationships using my wisdom, courage, and compassion.
I love that. That's so very powerful. And now, I know you're wondering, she named herself Lucky. That's not the name she was born with. But, oh, yes, it is. Tell us, how did you get the name Lucky?
Right. I have two older sisters, age 13 and 15 years older.
I'm sure they're glad to hear about that.
Right, right. And so my mother was pregnant with me, which was a surprise to everyone, evidently, is that she said, you know, I'm selling real estate and I'm succeeding. I'm playing the horses and I'm winning. And they began to call her Lucky. And she would pat her belly and say, this boy will be lucky.
Wow.
And guess what?
This girl will be lucky.
And so I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, in a Catholic hospital.
Okay.
And the nun said, you cannot go out of this hospital with a baby named Lucky. It has to have a saint's name. So they assumed I was the last child, which wasn't true. They assumed I was the last child. And they gave me my father's name and my mother's name put together. His name was Carl. Her name was Pauline. And so I am on my birth certificate and baptismal certificate. It says Carlene. But I've never in all my years ever been called it.
Wow, you've only been lucky.
Only been lucky.
Isn't that beautiful? You know, the universe is just amazing because I too was given my birth name of Gino, and people tried really hard to make it Gina. Some people want an explanation. Well, don't you think you should change it to Gina? I'm like, no, I am Gino.
That's right.
You know, and the nurse hated my name and told my mother, you can't name that child that. And my mother's like, yes, I can. And she said she was in labor, so she said some other words as well.
That's hilarious.
And the nurse said, well, okay, then you have to give her a middle name. Now, nobody in our family has a middle name, but I do. And the nurse was like, I'm going to put down Elizabeth. And my mother said, she screamed, no, Maria, Maria! What they had to go through to get our trueness to be here.
I know, we are our true selves.
Absolutely.
And every time I don't introduce myself and say, hello, I'm Lucky. I always say, hello, my name is Lucky. Because they think it's a joke.
Exactly.
And the nuns, when I went to Catholic school, They refused to call me Lucky. They wouldn't. They would call me by one of my last names in my life, Miss Moore. They would say they evidently tried to call me Carlene early on, and then I was getting in trouble because I wasn't answering my name.
Oh my God! It's like we're sisters.
I know.
I have that story.
Did you really?
I have that story. Except I didn't answer. They were calling me Maria, and I was looking around the class for Maria.
See, that's what I'm looking for. Carlene. Who is she? I have no idea. And I always had this idea. Carlene was a blonde and could do this with her hair. Not me.
Power to us hanging
exactly
in the default, even though we didn't know.
Right. That's right. That's true.
And so now you said your parents had another surprise. There's one more?
Yes, my brother.
Ah, they finally got that boy.
They got their boy 22 months later.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Wow.
And so I had my father's name. So they
What do we do? What do we do?
David Lawrence. They named his name, our family name at that time was Surdick, and so he was David Lawrence Surdick. And he's named after, evidently there was a famous newspaper man or journalist in Chicago that somehow knew my family, and they decided to name him after David Lawrence. So,
wow.
I know.
I know. Our parents, we gotta love them.
I know.
Just, they were breaking through.
That's right.
And now you are quite a breakthrough, because I found out that Lucky has done a lot of things in the realm of prejudice, racism, bringing awareness to white folks.
White folks. Me. Look at this guy.
my white brothers and sisters in the world.
Exactly right.
And also my black brothers and sisters in the world, awareness of how to communicate. How did that happen for you?
Well, it started early, and I will weave in why the Let There Be Peace on Our song for me.
I love it. I love it.
Is that I was raised in Tampa and St. Petersburg, Florida, in the segregated South in the 40s. And I was being raised, yes. It was a woo.
Yeah.
And I was being raised, but my mother divorced my father then. She remarried, and my name was Lucky Moore for those years. And my brother, Larry, they called him Larry, not even David. My poor brother. But I was raised, and I was always asking questions. And I would say we had a maid who was African American. Her name was Minnie. No, I never knew her last name. I never knew her last name. But she took care of my brother and I, and then we had a beach house.
I just want to say something on that. That's really interesting, because when you look at some of the old flicks with maids, it's always like Miss Minnie.
That's right.
Miss Shira, there was no last name.
There was no last name, or Rincey. When was Rincey?
Rincey.
I know.
That's somewhere deep in the South.
That is very deep.
I don't even know if I know where that part of the South is.
I know. And so I remember that. I remember being told to be polite.
Okay.
I remember being told that there were words I should never use. But there was this politeness. But many took care of us. My mother was working, my stepfather was working, and my grandmother was home. But I kept asking, well, why can't Minnie stay with us?
She wanted her to move in.
Yeah. I said, why can't she stay with us? And why can't she stay overnight when we went to the beach house and she served for a party the family would have? And there was always, she'd rather be home. Well, that meant she'd have to take a bus 25, 30 miles at night to get back.
Wow.
So I kept asking these questions. And in the meantime, I was being educated in a Catholic school system and told that we are all created equal. And I wasn't seeing that.
Okay.
And so it became frustrating to me, because I never felt I was getting the truth.
Yes.
I would run to sit in the back of the bus on Beach Boulevard. No, get back here, girl, you can't sit there. And so, but why? So the question of why lingered for me for a long, long time. And so things happened in those years. My stepfather died when I was 11, and so he died, and my mother then hooked up with a man who beat her and cut her
wow.
and threatened to kill us all.
Oh my goodness.
And so So my sister, my older sister, rescued us under FBI guard. We changed our name. Yeah, we left Florida.
This man was a killer from Manila.
He was. He pushed her out of the car. She had a scar from here to here from a knife, and she would have him arrested, and he'd say, "You have to come back because I'm going to kill the whole family." So finally, after 3 years of this,
wow.
So we left. We came to California, and St. Louis, and then California.
St. Louis, we have so much. That's my hometown, St. Louis.
I lived in the area of Berkeley in 1955.
That was out in the suburbs.
That's those are the burbs. Those were definitely
that was the suburbs.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we were there from February to April of 1955. So I went to school in Florida, in Tampa, Florida, and then one day I came home from school and the moving van was there, and overnight, that's when we left, and we flew to St. Louis and then back over to California.
It was a secret mission, in and out. That's how I did.
Yeah, we had to change our name, went back to our name, did everything. So,
I'm sorry. He must have had a lot of power then.
Yes. Well, no, he had used up all my mother's money. He used up. We lost. We really left everything there.
Yeah.
You know,
it was time for a new.
Right. It was.
And to save your life.
That's right.
Because you could get more things, but
that's right.
We are eternal, but
right.
Yeah.
And so in Tampa also, as I said, segregated. I remembered the fountains and all that. So this little child in me had all these questions that never got answered. So when we got to California, we moved to Canoga Park with my sister, and they put us up for all this time. My sister and her 3 children at that time.
Family.
Family. They saved us. They rescued us.
Yeah.
So I went to Sutter Junior High, and they were opening up the big auditorium in 1955. It was they continued to build this junior high in the San Fernando Valley. Okay. The last thing they were building was the auditorium. Okay. And I was in the choir. And I get in the choir, and this one afternoon, the director, she hands out brand new music, a song that has just been written. And it was Let There Be Peace on Earth. Really? It was the very fresh. I can still see that fresh music. When you get brand new music, Yeah. It's never been handled before. You open it up and there it is.
Oh my goodness.
And it was Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Let There Be Peace on Earth. Because that song has been around forever.
Right.
And, always it's amazing to me, some of the songs that were written in the earlier times. Mm-hmm. There was more consciousness sometimes in the sense of pulling us forward to move to a sense of togetherness, and recognizing that we all are one.
And we all are one.
Yeah. Wow, that's phenomenal.
And the woman, Jill's her first name, I've forgotten her last name, who wrote this song. She wrote this song, so this is why it comes into my human relations justice work piece.
Yes.
In 1984, I was hired for a human relations organization, the National Conference of Christians and Jews, and it was founded to eliminate bias, bigotry, and racism in America.
That's a whole lot.
We're just going to check this off. Yeah. We'll do a check off.
Right. All right. Racism, prejudice, bias, done.
Done. I know. So I ended up there, and in the first 6 months, I discovered that the person who wrote Let There Be Peace on Earth wrote it because her children went to their brotherhood, sisterhood camp of NCCJ, National Conference of Christians and Jews. She wrote it because she saw interracial relationships working at the campsite at that same place. So then
through the kids.
So she wrote the song Let There Be Peace on Earth.
Yes.
So she writes, I end up singing it.
Oh.
I end up singing it, and then I end up at a CCJ at the place that inspired her to write the song.
Wow. That is an amazing journey. I know some of us would call it serendipity.
Yes.
Synchronicity.
Right.
That's alignment. And at such a young age, you were in alignment for what you were calling for. Okay, so you find yourself in this space where, as a young person, you were kind of on the leading edge to find out why we can't get along because of the color of our skin.
Right.
Now, did you ever feel uncomfortable around? I'm just calling black folks,
Please,
you know.
yeah, go ahead. I think I would say, I would have to admit,
Yes.
I would have to say yes, but not around the people that were around us. And I will, when my...
Oh, please say that again. Because people think that, you know, I love people say, I'm not racist, my husband is black.
Right.
Well, yeah, but what about the 5 other million? How do you feel about them?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's a perfect kind of pulling out of a truth.
Absolutely.
You know, you just keep pulling the truth out of all these pieces. When I was at SC, and I'm going to speak to the discomfort because when I was at SC, the university was given a grant, a Lilly grant, to work with the Gathering of Greater Los Angeles, which was headed up by Reverend Chip Murray, Reverend James Lawson Jr., and Reverend Thomas J. Kilgore.
Those were the heavyweights in LA.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
and so it came through the office I worked in, the Institute of Changing Ministries, and they put me as the facilitator and the process person for 2 years to work with. So it wasn't, it was like, oh my God, I'm this white Roman Catholic woman, and you know, I love folks, but I've never had an immersion experience. That
could be pretty daunting.
It was daunting, and I will say is that when I was giving instructions to 250 black men,
wow,
and they were resisting going and getting the chart paper and doing the work I had them doing, I said, it's really okay, I'm not a slave driver. And at that moment I went, I am. And it was a discovery of I amness about white folks and the color of my skin and the privilege and all that kind of just rolled up in me. And I felt the truth, but what it did is what I realized, you know, what is underneath comes up when you are most uncomfortable.
Yes, it does. And you know, the emotion, the feeling, sometimes we can't articulate it, but you always can feel it.
Right.
And I'm sure at that time, because, you know, here you have, like you say, what was it, 100? 200 black men, but here's a white woman that's in charge, running things. And so the whole premise of what we're trying to move forward, we're trying to bring people together, yet here is the same
dynamic.
The same dynamic.
It was.
Thank you.
It was absolutely.
That had to be, you know, and now some people would have taken that like, yeah, I'm in charge, I got it. How did you deal with that initially?
I went, I am totally ignorant here. And it was interesting because I went, okay, I'm understanding facilitation and process from my cultural grounding. This is not the same.
Wow.
And I began to listen. And I was all over South Los Angeles for 2 years, never had a problem, and I wasn't afraid, I have to say.
Okay.
There was something, I don't know.
That's why she didn't have a problem, because she wasn't afraid.
Yeah, that's right. The spirit, there was something about my grounding as a person of faith, as being believing we were created equal. Well, why isn't it happening?
Yes.
And so these gentlemen were truly my instructors, whether they were in front of me or not. But when I listened, when I watched, when I saw what they were dealing with in South Los Angeles, and it was all around police brutality. This was a whole theme. And is that I began to go, wow, I know nothing. Yeah. And one of the books that was most important for me, because I was getting backlash from black women. I'm a white woman, and I was getting some backlash.
What was the black woman saying?
Is like, what do you think? What are you doing here?
Who do you think you are?
That's exactly that's it. And I'm going, you know. Luckily, I was old enough to go. Okay, there's something here that I don't. There's a lot here I don't know. And so this When and Where I Enter, The Impact of Black Women on Sex and Race in America by Paula Giddings was really helpful. And then other of these pastors said, here's what you can look at. Here's something you can read. Here's this. And I absorbed.
Wow.
And my heart expanded in such a way that I went, wait a minute, I have to work on systemic issues. Try to help white folks to understand that it isn't enough to be nice and kind. It's important to be that, but it's not enough. Right?
Yes.
It's not enough.
Yes.
You need to understand, I need to understand all the history that got us here since the 1400s.
I agree with you 100%. And I also say that for us black people, people of color, we also must decide that we're not going to be victims anymore. And that also corresponds to me with, I have to be open to listen to you, because you do have a different perspective. I have a different perspective, and it doesn't make one greater than the other.
That's right.
But it is different.
It is different.
And to be able to start at a place of like, okay, there is a difference that's been created by our history.
Perfect.
What are we going to do to move forward?
Right.
Without making you wrong, me right, because that has not worked.
It hasn't.
We're all still, I feel, imprisoned by our own minds.
That's true. We are. We are. And I had a gentleman ask me saying, but Lucky, what am I going to, white man, what am I going to do? I can understand the history, but I'm never going to have these horrifying experiences that black men have had.
This is true.
And I said, they don't want you to go through this. That isn't what the black men I said, but what they want you to do is believe them when they tell you.
That it's real. That it's it's a different thing. I was sharing with a friend of mine maybe a month ago that we were out somewhere, and it was a carload full of young kids, and they were white kids.
Okay.
It was like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
Piled into a car.
Okay.
Police car drove by, nothing. And I just said, now you see that if that were 5 or 6 black young men, they would have gotten pulled over. And she immediately said, well, they had to be doing something wrong.
That's right.
And I said, no. What they did was collectively be in a car together in a neighborhood that somebody thought they shouldn't be in.
And how did your friend respond when you gave her the truth? Or
She was just blank space, like,
yeah,
there it is again. And there's a lot of that. There it is again. It's just a victim, and that's not victim. That's a reality that we have to shift that type of thinking,
exactly.
and that keeps us separate. So
True.
You found yourself heading up 200 black men and a few black women that were like, who the hell is she?
Exactly right.
And see the man, how did she get this position?
Right.
And so you could have really been in a place to just be shut down and turned off. But what made you open your heart to even want to listen?
I think this is a wonderful question you're asking me at this moment, because what just came up for me was I finally getting answers to those questions that I asked.
Wow, from a little one.
From a little girl.
Wow.
Was I finally hearing the why when I asked the answers, the truthful answers to the why.
Wow. That is powerful. Because I would imagine that, I don't know if you asked Minnie what her, why she couldn't stay, or, it was just your parents. Yeah. Because I don't know what she would have said either. Yeah. Because there was a protocol that had to be followed.
That's exactly right. Okay,
so you find yourself in this group for 2 years. You're doing this. What do you feel came out of that?
I know what came out of it was that, for me to understand that even though there were tragedies in my life, that it still was, that was not initiated by the government or the church. It was not initiated. It was a family tragedy. It was a family tragedy. And that one of the things in interracial dialogue that I facilitated over the years is that tendency of, similar to what your friend said, there it is again, is that we would have a session, 6 sessions of a diverse dialogue, interracial dialogue in Los Angeles. We would have those. And an African American man, say at the 3rd session, would finally tell his truth because he felt it was trusted. And a white woman would say, that's just like sexism. And he'd shut down. So for me, the learning was to really, truly understand that we can improve our interpersonal relationships. And you may not like me, but that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. We're not gonna like everybody.
I know. I don't like everybody either. But it is. But in my heart, I would know it is not. In my heart, I would try to believe it was not because I'm a white person, or for me, it's not because you're black.
Exactly.
Right? That I would just go, we don't have anything in common.
Exactly.
You know,
you may be a nasty person.
Exactly.
I think you're rude.
I think you're rude. You know, go home. You know, but but it's getting to that. And when I do Whiteness 101 workshops,
Whiteness 101. Whiteness 101. Have you heard that before? I have not. Whiteness 101.
We used to call another one called RAP, White Racial Awareness Process. It was our own rap. But a place where we could talk about the impact of the systemic on us as far as human beings. As humans. And saying, look, this is, we've all had immigrant experiences. But what was it? Those in power, what did government and church, what did they do to make certain that folks and people of color were continually oppressed and never came out of the starting gate at the same place?
You know, I think one of the other important things, like you said, 101, all of us have been affected.
Right.
You know, we think, and it doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, if you're Jewish, if you're Hispanic,
if you're Indian,
Asian, whatever, or African, we all have been affected.
Absolutely.
And the stories that continue to keep us separate, at some point, we're going to have to want to create some difference. Yeah,
we do.
You know, there is a different understanding. There is a different way that we are treated. But we also must understand that how we treat ourselves, how we treat ourselves is truly important.
That's right.
So the 101, what is it called? Wait a minute.
Whiteness 101.
Whiteness 101. That just cracks me up. Whiteness.
I know, we love it.
I love that, because especially when you can come together and have real conversation.
Right.
And with someone like you, that you've seen both sides and you've been open. With this organization, did you find that people were hungry to understand or hungry to be right?
Those who would come, people would say we're preaching to the choir. However, the choir has a lot to learn.
That's some different
because
songs.
when you look at a choir, you've got all these different sections,
Yes.
and each one of us has to learn something different.
Right.
So the folks who would come were really Whiteness 101 or the interracial dialogue or the interfaith dialogues, all of those, was that come away seeing how similar, like for instance, our faiths and what we were believing in God, and how similar some of our experiences were and how they were different. When people resisted, they'd leave the second session.
Yeah, too much. And not everybody's ready.
They're not ready.
Not everybody's ready. But I do think now more people are ready.
I think they are too.
You know, the consciousness has been moving along so quickly. So there is this this yearning that what we've done in the past hasn't worked.
Right.
So what can we do now?
That is true. I mean, what can we do now? I mean, it's important to be active and to take an activist stance, but as you were saying, what are we doing for ourselves?
Yes.
How are we improving the listening?
Yes.
Am I always getting a what about him? What about? What about? Well, what about? What about? And
right.
And we suffered. My family didn't have money.
Right.
No. Can we say, where is the bridge between us that we cross?
Isn't that nice? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Was beautifully said. Where is the bridge? Where is the bridge? I think we could spend a lot of time on trying to figure out how we got here, or who was right, who was wrong.
Absolutely.
But that keeps the same cycle. And if you believe in the law of attraction, which I do,
I do too.
Yeah. So then we keep putting it out there. We keep having those experiences that are horrible.
Yes.
Yeah. And keeping the separation, keeping the separation. So. Now, are you still participating in different organizations that deal with racism and prejudice?
I found it, first of all, I found an organization up here called Showing Up for Racial Justice. It's for white folks becoming allies and working for justice work. Okay. So Ed and I go to the meetings, and in fact, we have another meeting.
Ed, that's our honey bunny.
Yes, it is. Yes, my honey bunny is true.
Just had to say that. He's my friend, but that's her honey bunny.
And his Chinese sign is a rabbit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, honey bunny was perfect. It's perfect.
The universe.
It is. What can I say? But I think that that's Showing Up for Racial Justice. Also, the organization for which I worked, NCCJ, for 20 years. I was there 20 years.
Wow. They didn't run you off?
No, this was the organization that was. We're having the interracial dialogues. Wow. This is the one that said, and this is where rap was started and all that. So but unfortunately, the national office actually overspent the budget, and we had to close our offices down. But the office in the Central Coast here, Just Communities, is still the NCCJ work. Yeah. So I was on the board, and I was at the Social Equity Summit last Thursday all day.
Oh,
it was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
Where did that take place at?
It was Carrillo was kind of in the community area there, but it's in Santa Barbara. It was wonderful. Okay. So I'm still active with Just Communities. And then I'm active in doing some outreach at Ventura Center for Spiritual Living. But I also, my colleague Diane Burby, she is a consultant, and so last year I worked with her to help look at diversity in the arts for the LA County Arts Commission. Okay. And then I was with her at Glendale High. We had other facilitators where they had a blow up there at the high with high school students. So I'm still doing it. I'm trying to write. I'm trying to write some of my experiences.
Well, you are writing. She is writing some of her experiences. I know you are. She's a phenomenal woman. So I know she is. I know she's writing, and it's amazing as you talk about the youth. That at one point I thought too, because so many different races are mixing and coming together, that racism just be kicked out the door. But that's when you really see that it is at a systemic level, that we are unconscious of the things that we're carrying, and then that we carry over to our children. I tell the story. I'm a huge sports fan. And Tiger Woods on Oprah talking about his mother, who is of Asian descent, and his father's black. And so he made up this name for himself. He's like, I'm like Kabulation, Kabu Nation, Kabu Black Nation. And black people went crazy. They lost their mind. He's nothing but a black man. And it's like, so his mother doesn't count?
What a good question. What a great question.
His mother doesn't count. So she's just out. Just,
I know.
And these old stories, these old things that keep us in prison. Here was a man that his mother's Asian. How is he not part Asian?
And even look at Obama.
Exactly. My president. I love my president.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
But exactly, we're literally all
Right.
mutts.
Right.
Mutts in the most
Yes, we
loving
are.
way.
Yeah, we are.
You know, there's a lot of mixture that happened throughout all of our ancestral.
Yes, it does.
You know, people do a lot of mixing and mingling, not just now, but
Right.
they do.
Been happening forever.
As Pearl Bailey used to say, I'm the only one that married it.
That's true.
But a lot of us are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your hope? What would you feel would be one of the most beautiful things that could come through you in the work that you're doing?
To inspire people to question and to listen.
Wow.
Question.
She just nailed that. That's everything.
Yeah.
That's everything. And it's no wonder that your passion is relationships, because what's the greatest relationship? With ourselves. Wow. What a wise, beautiful soul. So I just love that. I love it. That's fantastic. I want to thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'll keep you, all of our information will be below for those that may be looking for a way, organizations that they can reach out to, that they can participate in. And you know, when you have wisdom like this, just blessing us and joyously doing it from a space of love. A lot of times people like to say that God, source, light can't be involved in our quest to heal racism and prejudice and bias. I think there's no way that we can do it without it.
No, I agree.
And you exude that magnificently.
Thank you.
So thank you. We're going to close out with our song.
Yes. Okay.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our power, sisters all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for joining me on Pass the Mic. Remember, we are one. We hold a vision. We are creating our here and now. Just you and me. Just you and me. I'll see you next week on Pass the Mic.